23 days left until I've got to ride it on this bike run. So not much crossing out being done on the list, but we're up to the fuel pump part still. So I'm going to try and mount that and finish that fuel system off totally. Bang a couple of globes in so I finally get to cross something out off my list. Have a bit of a straighten up. Then I've got the bolts to bolt the header pipe on, or the dump pipe I should say, out of the turbo to the muffler. I'd like to get that on. See what we can do. I have drilled and tapped the frame and bolted the clamps that come with the fuel pump. What I need to do now is to pick up this end of the clamp and be able to support it. So I've got to drill and tap another hole in the back of my frame here. That should sort the pump out. I had to drill a couple of holes in the frame so I could tap them. Rather than pull the intake manifolds off, I had to shorten up one of my drill bits and I could just sneak it in there. And so I've survived tapping the first one. Just got to tap this guy here and I can mount it up. These are the brackets that I've bought from the hardware store. I've pre-drilled them so they match the width of the clamp, and that's where they bolt up to the frame, which will basically swing across and hold that side of the clamp. There's a fuel pump all mounted. It's nice and solid and still rubber mounted as well. So only one thing left to do, and that's to rip over here and get rid of it off my list. Alright, only 5,000 other things I've got to do. Quickly putting the plenum chamber back in. I've definitely got clearance, so that is great. I've run the fuel line up through here. I'm going to support it off this riv nut before it loops around to the fuel filter. So I'll figure that out first and then I'll mount the line. I'm pretty happy with the layout of the fuel system. So when I get my clamps, they'll all finish that off properly. When I go to fit the fuel tank for the final time, I'll be able to run the fuel lines to the fuel tank, obviously. I've put a clamp around here and tied it back to that bracket. I was just a bit worried it was going to rattle loose, so that's rock solid now. I think the next job I'll attack will be laying the harness back in, the actual standard Kawasaki loom. So I'll grab that and drop him in and see if he all plugs in. Actually, before I get into the harness, I've got to have a clean up. I've got crap everywhere, tools, bits and pieces from the fuel system. These aren't chocolates either, in case you're wondering. They're some drill bits. So anyway, I'll have a quick clean up and I'll be back. That's much better. So now my bench is clean. There's the stock harness that we did a while ago. I'll look at putting that back into the bike and yeah, mounting up the junction box and other bits and pieces. And that's a job for tomorrow. I've had a few days off, so now I'm back down the shed. Only 19 days left now. I fixed up this seal, the nut. What I want to have a crack at today is to basically pull the plenum chamber out, put the feed pipe back in, and see if it marries up to the feed pipe from the turbo. It's a bit tight where it goes against the number 2 coil stick, where before it just had plug caps and plug wires. This is a lot bigger. I'll have to put it in, see what sort of clearance we get, and make a game plan. while the plenum chamber is still sitting there, I might try and drop in the main harness. It's a bit tight as it comes through the frame and the edge of the plenum chamber there, so while it's sitting there and I've got to pull it out anyway, I might try and lay that in and see if I can get a bit of clearance as well. I've just laid the main harness in, the original Kawasaki one, and I got up to where the headlights are and needed to fit the boots that protect the globe area. And anyway, this rubber here was very brown from old dead rubber, so I used the soda blaster and it actually took all the dead brown stuff off and came out quite good. You can just see the condition it was up near my thumb, and the soda blaster took all that residue off and didn't wreck the rubber. I've refitted the plenum chamber and the 2 feed pipes, and this is my problem. So basically there's no clearance to fit the rubber hose in, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it here, cut it on this side, and then be able to close up the gap and get it re-welded so it swings it all across to the right of the bike, and that should give me a bit more clearance. So I'll pull both those pipes out, give them a chop, and see if we've got a gap. Well, this is where we're going to cut it. Like from here to this side right through, and the same there, and then the gap we'll be able to squeeze up on this side, just give it that little bit more clearance that it needs. So I've ripped it off, cut it with the 1mm disc, and yep, it moves over a bit. Maybe we'll get away with it, might have to chop it a bit more, but I'll move on to this guy here and see if I can swing him across, because now they don't quite line up. Now the time has come to remove the feed pipe from the turbo, and I've sort of found that I can't easily get it out because it's stuck in the exhaust manifold here. I'll have to try a little bit harder, but I might have to maybe pull the headers off, which I don't really want to do. So we'll see what I can do. I'll have to remove all this stuff at a minimum and cross my fingers. She's out. So now I'm going to give it a chop and see if I can fix the drummer. Pretty stoked. I was able to just wind it around, and it basically unscrewed itself out from the gap that was left between the pipes, and out she came. After a few goes of putting this pipe in and out and just cutting it back slowly, I've straightened it up to the point where now it just misses the coil on plug here, so that'll be good. I'll rip it out to Sean at Adrenaline Performance and leave it with him and get him to TIG this up for me. Then I'll be moving on to the radiator, I reckon. That's all pretty badly bent and the fins look very unhappy, so I'll be doing a bit of Googling and seeing how I can straighten up all these fins. They're quite bad. And then, yeah, I'll be able to put the radiator in. Alright, well that's me done for the night after I rip these parts out. See you tomorrow. Okay, 18 days left. Just been out to Sean at Adrenaline Performance and got him to weld these guys on the end for me. So I'll have one last fit up and then pull it off. I'll have to make a gasket here and there and lay out the harness to see if that's in the correct spot. And then finally we'll be able to bolt that in for the last time. Then I'll be cleaning the blow-off valve, putting the air temp sensor in, and a few other bits and pieces. Rightio. Hopefully this is the last mock-up. A lot more progress once again. The harness is laid in there. I made a bit of a list of all the little bits and pieces I need, like the special connector that does the starter solenoid, bits and pieces, rubber. Found out the side stand's about, I don't know, probably 4 inches too short, so I better sort that out, I suppose. Side stand switch, bits and pieces. So there's the old parts list. I'll have to order some more tomorrow and have another crack at it.